In the third chapter of John's Gospel, there is an interesting dialogue that takes place. It's a dialogue between John the Baptist and his disciples. And the conversation revolves around the increasing popularity of Jesus and the decreasing popularity of John the Baptist. The conversation goes something like this. His disciples come to him and they said, "John, all of the attention that you have been getting is now going to Jesus. You're not a big deal anymore." Now, the implication was, what are you going to do to change this? To get back into the limelight again, John? This is such a vivid picture of life. The way that most of us have grown up, we've been led to believe that our life should be about us, that we should make a name for ourselves, that we should leave our mark on the world, that we can be anything we want to be. All of our lives are a wrestling match that will decide who will sit on the throne, who will rule our own personal kingdoms. And in this wrestling match, there are only two possible outcomes. We will either yield to what God is doing in us to make us more like Jesus and more like Him, or we will fight against what He is doing so that we might take the rightful seat on the throne of our lives, that our own personal agendas will win the day. I want to go back to the dialogue in John 3 for a moment, because in this passage we find three of life's greatest struggles revealed. The first is the struggle for recognition. In verse 26, when the disciples come to John and they say, "What are you going to do about this problem? He's gaining notoriety. How are you going to fix the problem?" John has a response to make. But before we look at that response, I want you to think about something. Every spring, hundreds of Hollywood stars gather for the Academy Awards. Very few slip in the back door. Instead, they make a grand entrance. They walk down the long red carpet. They smile at the cameras. They wave as they go. They want to be noticed. We all want to be noticed. When we don't get noticed, we begin to look for others to blame. We turn to self-pity, and it's often in the most subtle ways. Do you know that one of the most subtle sins is the sin of self-pity? It steals our joy, it quenches our faith, it sours our relationship. It magnifies our frustrations, it fuels our gossip, it depletes our strength, it eats us alive. But I want you to see the difference in John's response. John says, "This has never been about me. I'm not the light. I'm not the Christ." Here's what John says in verse 23 of John 3. He says, "I'm just a voice. I'm just a voice. That's all I am." You see, John understood something we all need to understand. And that is that we were created to live both for something and someone greater than ourselves. We were created to have a relationship with and to live our lives for and to depend completely upon the God who created us. He is meant to be the motivation and the goal of everything we do. His pleasure, His name, His will. He is to be at the center of our universe, not us. But there's a second struggle we see in this passage, and it's the struggle for success. Remember, the disciples said to John, "All of your efforts are being eclipsed by Him." Look at John's response again. "It's not my success that motivates me. It's His success. It's all about Him," John said. What a truth to remember. Aim for significance in your life. Don't aim for success. Success says climb. Significance says serve. Success says get. Significance says give. You see, if you measure your life by your success, you've got two big problems. First, what happens when circumstances in your life change? You don't have success like you used to. Maybe your work responsibilities change. Maybe you lose a job, you enter into retirement. Whatever the case, if succeeding becomes your identity, what happens when you don't succeed anymore? When it's taken out of your hands? What do you do when it's gone? Secondly, when success is our goal, how much success is enough? How much? You feel so fulfilled, but you're at risk of becoming enslaved to achievement, making bad choices, staying too busy. When you find your success, and purpose in success, you're going to be frustrated. You see, our earthly accomplishments have a shelf life. Earth is just a temporary assignment. And knowing this truth should radically alter what we value and what we pursue and what motivates us. It causes us to fix our attention on things that are eternally important. I love how C.S. Lewis put it. He said, all that is not eternal is eternally useless. The struggle for success is real. So John wrestled with this when his disciples came to him. The struggle for success, the struggle for recognition, and finally, I want you to see a third struggle, the struggle for identity. In verse 30, John says, he must increase and I must decrease. Have you ever noticed that as quickly as John the Baptist enters the picture, he exits? John says unequivocally that this has never been about me. It was never supposed to be about me. It sounds so different from the way that most of us live. And if you look at it on the surface, it could seem like a failed ministry. I mean, you're here and then you're gone and it's never about you. There's no notoriety. And yet Jesus himself says of every man born, there is none greater than John the Baptist. His ministry was far from a failure. You see, identity is not discovered by looking horizontally at what everybody else is doing. My identity is found by looking vertically at what God wants to do through me and what his purpose is. Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 23 and 24 says, let not the wise man boast of his wisdom, or the strong man of his strength, or the rich in his riches. It's not about wisdom. It's not about strength. It's not about riches. But let the one who boasts, boast in this, that he understands and knows me. John Calvin put it this way, there is no knowing that does not begin without first knowing God. You see, John the Baptist came to a conclusion that we all need to come to, especially those of us in ministry. And that is, what is enough for us? Is it recognition? Is it climbing a ladder? Is it being well known? Is it success? No, we have to come to the conviction that Jesus is enough for us. And that it's okay for him to increase and for us to decrease. It's never been about us in the first place. And there's something liberating when you come to recognize that it's okay that people may not know your name or know all that you do, but it's not okay that people don't see the Jesus in you shining through your life and your ministry.